Hello everyone, and welcome to Orthodox Shahada. I'm Kai, and this presentation is on verse 47 of Surah 5 of the Quran. This verse is an absolute nightmare for Muslims to deal with, and is perhaps the most powerful verse in the entire Quran to demonstrate the falsity of Islam. The verse is about commanding the Christians to use their own scripture, which the Quran refers to as the Injeel, or more properly Injeel, from the Greek Evangelion, the Gospel, in order to judge the truthfulness of Islam. If Christians reject Islam, then it is because they are covering up the truth in the Injeel, manipulating the truth in the Injeel, denying the truth in the Injeel. They are disobedient to the Injeel, which allegedly points to Muhammad. Now, Muslims will do a lot of mental gymnastics with this verse because they know deep down that when knowledgeable Christians use the gospel, then it is impossible for them to conclude the truthfulness of Islam. So Muslims have to invent all sorts of coping mechanisms. For example, the Injeel the Quran refers to is not the gospel that Christians had. That the Injeel the Christians had was corrupted, that the Christians being talked about were not those at the time of Muhammad, but were those at the time of Christ, and on with nonsensical explanations. It boils down to Muslims manipulating the Injeel to suit their own agenda, basically doing with the Injeel what the Quran accuses the Jews of doing with the Torah. What I present here is a commentary from Razi on 547. To my knowledge, this commentary is not available in English, and so I provide my own translation. Razi's commentary obliterates all the mental gymnastics employed by Muslims. When it comes to Razi's commentary, really the only move Muslims can make is to just entirely reject Razi outright. That's how damaging his commentary is. And given that Razi's commentary on 547 requires that Christians had the uncorrupt gospel at the time of Muhammad by which they were told to judge Islam, it follows that meeting the Quranic challenge necessitates rejection of Islam. So, thank you, Razi, for helping destroy Islam. Yet another example that the greatest enemy of Islam are Muslims themselves. The commentary by Razi is commonly known as Mafatih al-Ghaib, or the keys of the unseen or unknown, and At-Tafsir al-Kabir, the great commentary, given that it is 32 volumes. It is highly authoritative within the Sunni tradition and one of the most respected and relied upon commentaries on the Quran. But before we get to the commentary, first we need to know the surrounding context, namely verses 41 through 49. Quote, O Messenger, let them not grieve you who hasten into disbelief of those who say, We believe, with their mouths, but their hearts believe not, and from among the Jews, they are avid listeners to falsehood, listening to another people who have not come to you. They distort words beyond their proper usages, saying, If you are given this, take it, but if you are not given it, then beware. But he for whom Allah intends fitna, never will you possess power to do for him a thing against Allah. Those are the ones for whom Allah does not intend to purify their hearts. For them in this world is disgrace, and for them in the hereafter is a great punishment. They are avid listeners to falsehood, devourers of what is unlawful. So if they come to you, O Muhammad, judge between them or turn away from them. And if you turn away from them, never will they harm you at all. And if you judge, judge between them with justice. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly. But how is it that they come to you for judgment while they have the Torah, in which is the judgment of Allah? Then they turn away, even after that. But those are not in fact believers. Indeed, we sent down the Torah, in which was guidance and light. The prophets who submitted to Allah judged by it for the Jews, as did the rabbis and scholars, by that with which they were entrusted of the scripture of Allah, and they were witnesses thereto. So do not fear the people, but fear me, and do not exchange my verses for a small price. And whoever does not judge by what Allah has revealed, then it is those who are the disbelievers. And we ordained for them therein a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a nose for a nose, an ear for an ear, a tooth for a tooth, and for wounds is legal retribution. But whoever gives up his right as charity, it is an expiation for him. And whoever does not judge by what Allah has revealed, then it is those who are the wrongdoers. And we sent, following in their footsteps, Jesus, the son of Mary, confirming that which came before him in the Torah. And we gave him the gospel, in which was guidance and light, and confirming that which preceded it of the Torah as guidance and instruction for the righteous. And let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah has revealed therein. And whoever does not judge by what Allah has revealed, then it is those who are the defiantly disobedient. And we have revealed to you, O Muhammad, the book and truth, confirming that which preceded it of the scripture, and as a criterion over it. So judge between them by what Allah has revealed, and do not follow their inclinations away from what has come to you of the truth. To each of you we prescribed a law and a method. Had Allah willed, He would have made you one nation united in religion, but He intended to test you in what He has given you. So race to all that is good. To Allah is your return altogether, and He will then inform you concerning that over which you used to differ. And judge, O Muhammad, between them by what Allah has revealed, and do not follow their inclinations, and beware of them, lest they tempt you away from some of what Allah has revealed to you. And if they turn away, then know that Allah only intends to afflict them with some of their own sins. And indeed, many among the people are defiantly disobedient. End quote. In a nutshell, verses 41 through 49 establish that the Jews at the time of Muhammad sought Muhammad's arbitration instead of doing what the Torah prescribes because of the possibility that Muhammad would give them a more favorable ruling. The Christians are admonished to not do what the Jews were doing, namely, not being faithful to their own scripture. The Torah and Injeel are still considered valid, implying they are not corrupt, and the Quran gives Muhammad primacy over Jews and Christians and their scriptures. And now on to Razi's commentary. And if it is said, how is it permissible for them, meaning the Christians, to be commanded to judge by what is in the Injeel after the Quran has been revealed? Did you hear that? Can it be any more clear? The question Razi is posing is, how can the Christians be commanded to continue using the Injeel after the Quran has been revealed? Razi is unambiguous. The Quran is talking about the Christians alive at the time of Muhammad consulting their own scripture after revelation of the Quran has come to Muhammad. Continuing, we said, the answer is according to the following points. First, the meaning of let the people of the Injeel judge by what Allah revealed therein is the indicative proofs that point to the prophethood of Muhammad, and is the opinion of Asm. So Razi is saying that the Quran is instructing the Christians at the time of Muhammad to look to their Injeel to find Muhammad therein. Continuing. Second, and let the people of the Injeel judge by what Allah revealed therein, from that which has not been abrogated by the Quran. So Razi is saying that just how later revelation of the Quran can abrogate earlier revelation of the Quran, and that which is abrogated can still be part of the Quran, and the Quran as a whole is still consulted even with the abrogated parts, so too is the case with the Injeel. In other words, the Christians still have a valid Injeel in their possession that they can consult, just how the Jews have the Torah, but are to disregard those parts abrogated by the Quran. Continuing. Third, the meaning of his saying, "And let the people of the Injeel judge by what Allah revealed therein," is to deter them from distorting what is in the Injeel and changing it like the Jews did by concealing the judgments of the Torah. So the meaning of his saying, "And let them judge," is that the people of the Injeel are to uphold what Allah revealed therein according to the way which Allah revealed it without distortion and alteration. So Razi is saying in unambiguous, clear-cut language that verse 47 is speaking about Christians contemporaneous with Muhammad, similar to the Jews of verses 41 through 45 being contemporaneous with Muhammad. In other words, Razi is giving us the wider context that considers the Jewish and Christian communities existing at the time of Muhammad and their interactions with him. So what does Razi's commentary establish? Well, that 547 applies to the Christians at the time of Muhammad. That 547 reinforces the claim that the proof of Muhammad's so-called prophethood can be found in the Injeel that Christians at the time of Muhammad had in their possession. The reference to Asim is to the Mu'tazilite Abu Bakr al-Asim, who lived from 816 to 892 and who is even praised by Ibn Taymiyyah. By citing him, Razi demonstrates that the opinion is traced to relatively early on in Islam and transcends sectarian lines. In fact, by citing Asim, he establishes that for 200 to 300 years after Muhammad, Muslims believed that this verse applied to the Christians contemporaneous with Muhammad. Moreover, of the three ways Razi gives how to understand verse 47, finding Muhammad in the Injeel is the leading reason, and Muslims to this very day, desperately tried to prove that prophecies of Muhammad as a true prophet of God exist in Christian scripture. Basically, Muslims are desperate to substantiate the claims of Surah 7 verse 157 and Surah 61 verse 6. Now, even if Muslims reject Razi's first understanding of verse 47 on account of Asim, the other two understandings Razi gives both still necessitate that the target audience are Christians contemporaneous with Muhammad. 547 establishes that the Injeel that Christians had at the time of Muhammad was correct, meaning not corrupt, and still effectual. The nuance is only with regards to those parts that were abrogated by the Quran. And 547 is directly connected to the Jews of verses 41 through 45, namely to admonish Christians at the time of Muhammad not to do the same with the Injeel as what Jews did with the Torah, by distorting it, altering it, hiding it, and so on. You cannot get any clearer than this. 547 was applicable to the Christians at the time of Muhammad and charged them with appraising the validity of Islam. But what are the Muslim copes? Well, Muslims may say that Razi is not authoritative. This is the typical expected Muslim response to just reject whatever is inconvenient. At this point, the Muslim knows it's game over. By making this move, the Muslim is basically saying that Islam is a complete joke where everyone just makes up whatever they want about the religion. Muslims could cite other scholars who say that the people of the Injeel in verse 47 refers to those living at the time of Christ and not those living at the time of Muhammad. Such an exegesis makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, given that verses 41 through 45 and 48 through 49 refer to those contemporaneous with Muhammad. So you want us to believe that in the middle of all this, verse 47 suddenly switches time frames and refers to people 600 years earlier? Yeah, okay. That's not schizo at all. Scholars make this move either on account of imbecility, or they know that if one were to use the Injeel at the time of Muhammad to appraise the validity of Islam, then that backfires on Muslims and destroys Islam. Muslims could claim that the verse refers to judgments related to the punishment of certain transgressions, and therefore the Christians are not charged with using the Injeel to appraise the validity of Islam in general. Razi's commentary demonstrates that you can have multiple complementary meanings, that you can exegete in different ways that don't conflict with each other. So at best, this Muslim cope simply gives an additional exegesis without negating other possibilities. In fact, Razi already accounts for this particular cope in his second understanding. Moreover, the Muslim in invoking this cope doesn't realize that in order to deflect the charge against judging Islam in general, actually grants the position that the Injeel the Christians had at the time of Muhammad was not corrupt, because it makes no sense for Muhammad to tell Christians to adjudicate specific matters using corrupt scripture. In essence, what the Muslim cope is trying to do is give an exclusionary understanding, which Razi refutes. Another cope is that Muslims could claim that the people of the Injeel are to use the Torah with which to judge. Even if that is the case, then Christians would interpret the Torah according to the Christian understanding, which does not help the Muslim case at all. For example, Christians would say that Deuteronomy 18:18 applies to Christ. And Christ being the fulfillment of the Old Testament, there is no expectation of further prophets after Christ, thereby denying the truthfulness of Muhammad's claim to be the prophet of the true God. So Muslims really shoot themselves in the foot with this cope. Not to mention the commentary of Jalalain. We said, so let the people of the gospel judge according to what God has revealed therein, of rulings. A variant reading of wal yahkum, let them judge, is waliyahkuma, making it a supplement to that which is governed by the previous verb, atainahu, we gave to him. What Jalalain is saying is that Arabic grammar permits the consonantal written text without vowel markings, i.e. the way the earliest Quran manuscripts were written, to be read with vowel markings such that the verb for judging is connected to the verb for what is given, i.e. the Injeel, meaning that Christians are indeed to specifically use the Injeel with which to judge, and not the Torah. Now, even if Muslims were to attempt to counter by citing some qira'at nonsense, namely the multiple ways of reciting the Quran, to disallow Jalalain's grammar, the prior point of Christians exegeting the Torah through a Christian lens still stands. Muslims really have no convincing moves to make. So 547 is a huge problem for Muslims. Does 547 instruct Christians at the time of Muhammad to use the gospel in their possession to judge the truthfulness of Islam? Yes. Will Christians who judge according to the gospel accept Islam? No. They will witness before Muslims that Christ is God.